If you have a weakened immune system and are malnutritioned, you are more likely to become seriously ill if you contract the COVID-19 virus. Friday was World Health Hunger Day, and statistics show that millions of South Africans are starving. Now, let's discuss this further with Operation Hunger CEO Sandy Bukula. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your time here on eNCA. Now, of course, hunger has been an issue in South Africa for quite a long time, but obviously COVID-19, the lockdown, and people seeing their businesses close or lose their jobs made this 10 times worse.
That's absolutely correct. And, like the national picture at the moment, Masiho, is that, 11.8 people are expected to face high levels of acute food insecurity. And 2 million of those people are expected to be in an emergency. And as I speak to you right now, 9.6 of those people are already on a crisis. So at the moment, really, the picture is looking really scary for South Africa. And these numbers are increasing on a daily basis.
And I think the other important aspect is that this is not only South Africans. This is people living in South Africa. They are, for instance, foreign nationals and asylum seekers who are here, and they, for instance, they didn't really, especially in the beginning, they weren't considered for that 350 Rand grant. So it's more than just us.
It's more than just a statistic. I mean, the numbers I'm giving you right now is a sample that was taken between last year, June, in our second lockdown, and up until in March. So those samples is not, in fact, including everybody else, because the numbers are expected to increase now during the third wave as we speak at the moment,
So what do we do? We know that, for instance, government has feeding schemes. There are some learners, for instance, who literally only rely on that one plate of food that they get during break at school. So we know that the government has a constitutional obligation as well. But what do we do? Because the private sector also has to step in.
You know what? I think it's all sectors that need to step in. But I think what has happened really during this period is that, it has highlighted the dysfunctionality in our food systems and in our health systems. And I think what this has done is basically it has given us an opportunity to look at, our opportunities within, within our agricultural sectors. It has given us an opportunity to look at our nutrition care systems, that they not only just focused on, treating the problem, but actually how do we integrate nutrition into those systems? Because, Masiho, the access to food, it's not, it's not simply a choice, for civilians, but basically it's hindered by, systems and structures and living conditions, around. So it's a human, it's a human right, but in addition, it's an equity, and it's an equity a problem. So, it has to be addressed within the food environment. But I also think that there is an opportunity here to also, factor the health, the health systems as well. Because, within the years, besides just looking at COVID-19 right now, within the years, what we have discovered is there has been a very increased rise of undernourishment, but then we also have issues like diabetes, like the non-communicable diseases arising from dietary based issues. And what we've sort of done as a country is that we have directed a lot of budget towards the medical attention in treating those, instead of actually looking at acute preventative measures that enable people to strive where they work, where they play, where they live in environments, like preventative measures that enable people to be able to strive. So it's not only just literally the, like the factor of, having food availability, but it's having food access, it's having food availability, it's having food affordability, and it's also having the infrastructure being conducive, for civilians to be able, to provide for their families and for themselves.
And I mean,
yes,
I know
I'm so sorry. My voice is
Yes.
my voice is so bad. Yeah.
That's okay. That's okay. Let me not strain it for too long, but I just have another question, and I'm sorry for roping you into this, the emergency, the corruption emergency that is happening in South Africa. This is not just government, of course. There are enablers in the private sector who are the bribers, and government, obviously, some people being found wanting. That is also something very disappointing that could be used, that money could be used to eradicate hunger in the country.
I'm going to speak in the sector of hunger and nutrition because, of course, most of our work for 43 years has been concentrated on this. And I think with the understanding that government, and other food actors are generally just favor interventions, that are on an individual level efforts. I think if we were to look at an inclusive and a pro-equity, approach, some of those problems can be because, if we've got proper investment policies that enable for accountability, if we hold policies that account, food and beverage industries and how they promote, healthy diet and make them accessible to people, that would also assist. I mean, Masiho, over the past 11 months, we have seen an increase on staple crops. For food prices increase between 30% to 147%, and this is dependent, on availability of the crops and also on the seasonal crops. And this shouldn't happen because we were promised prior to the prior to the to the lockdown that the Commission's Price Commission is going to be stepping in and looking at these types of corruptions. So we've got all of those agencies that needs to be looked at. I mean, we've got also opportunities where we need to hold, the private sector accountable to ensure that they give back, to communities where they operate in. And who is actually, the private sector is doing so far, but things like minimum wage being addressed and actually being monitored. Things like CSI, BEE, is seeing them being implemented and being forced on a larger scale. Those are the things that can be immediate resolutes, within the country without us actually having to look at, really drastic measures. But we need to look at sustainability, accountability, investment being actually addressed and going directly, and also just, the distribution of equity across and opportunities across, the entire supply chain to ensure that the people at the bottom of the pyramid actually have got access, and the models enable them not to be so much dependent, but to be actively involved, in transforming, the economy, the environment, and also our social issues.